Welcome to class. Today, we're going to dive into another powerful real world event. It was a tragic collapse of a roof in the Dominican Republic. We're going to use this story, as sad as it was, as another opportunity to learn. So it's another learning experience. And, we're going to use the story to build your English vocabulary, your grammar, reading, reflection. This lesson is going to be real, definitely emotional, and deeply human. If you could just hop into the chat, you'll see the article, the original article that this lesson is based off of. And feel free to follow along with it because there is a video in the slides detailing the article, but using images from actors or actresses, a lot of B-roll footage that relates to the words of the article. And the reason we do that is just to help us understand the text a little bit better. So just if you see the screen. If not, I'm going to have to hit refresh like last time. Hey, Fam Bam, put a one in the chat if you guys see the screen. There should be a thumbnail, tragic nightclub collapse. All right, so we're going to go with the first slide.
Dominican Republic nightclub collapse kills 98. At least 98 people have been killed and more than 150 injured after a roof collapsed at a nightclub in the Dominican Republic's capital, Santo Domingo, officials have said. A provincial governor and former Major League Baseball pitcher Octavio Dotel were among the victims. Dotel, 51, died on the way to hospital after being pulled from the debris. The incident happened in the early hours of Tuesday at a concert by popular merengue singer Ruby Perez at the Jet Set nightclub. He was among those killed in the incident, his manager said. Hundreds of people were inside the venue and some 400 rescuers are still searching for survivors. There are fears the death toll will rise further. People cry and hug each other near the Jet Set nightclub in Santo Domingo. The director of the Emergency Operations Center, Juan Manuel Mendez, said he was hopeful that many of those buried under the collapsed roof were still alive. Jet Set is a popular nightclub in Santo Domingo, which regularly hosts dance music concerts on Monday evenings. Politicians, athletes, and other prominent figures were in attendance. Also among the victims was Nelcy Cruz, governor of Monte Cristi province, President Luis Abinader said. She was the sister of former baseball player Nelson Cruz, a 7-time Major League Baseball All-Star. Dotel, meanwhile, began playing for the New York Mets in 1999 and played for teams including the Houston Astros, Oakland A's, New York Yankees, Chicago White Sox, and Detroit Tigers until 2013. Video footage apparently taken inside the club shows people sitting at tables in front of the stage and some dancing to the music in the back while Ruby Perez sings.
All right, so that's what I was telling you earlier, that these are just actors and actresses in the video, but what you're hearing is actual audio from the words in the article explaining what happened.
In a separate mobile phone recording shared on social media, a man standing next to the stage can be heard saying something fell from the ceiling, while his finger can be seen pointing towards the roof. In the footage, singer Ruby Perez also seems to be looking towards the area pointed out by the man. Less than 30 seconds later, a noise can be heard, and the recording goes black while a woman is heard shouting, "Dad, what's happened to you?" One of Ruby Perez's band members told local media that the club had been full when the collapse happened at around 1 in the morning. "I thought it was an earthquake," the musician said. The daughter of Ruby Perez said her father was among those trapped in the debris. President Abinader has expressed his condolences to the families affected.
All right, again, that's not the president. just some actors. But basically, here's a quick summary of what the article in the link. It's in the description. It's also in the chat. And we actually listened to the article. That was audio from the article with some B-roll footage. So if I could just give you a quick summary, on April 8th, 2025, the roof of this jet set nightclub in Santo Domingo, it collapsed during a concert. Just imagine being at a concert and the roof just beginning to crumble over your head, right? Sadly, over 200 people lost their lives, including famous people, musicians, public figures, sports players, and over 160 people injured after that. The rescue teams were working hard around the clock, just trying to get people out of that rubble, trying to save people. They even had their president come visit the scene. And no one knows how this happened or why this happened. It's still under investigation. And the country, everyone is just shocked by what happened. I actually have some students who lost some friends who were in that nightclub. So this was a very famous band in the global Latin music community, and they had a lot of people, following them. So over 200 people dead, but thousands and thousands of families, unfortunately, have to deal, with the negative backlash of having someone die, and probably a situation that could have been avoided. All right, but we're not here to get into politics or debate. We're just here to learn English, and we're using the article to learn vocabulary, grammar, my favorite, the 5 W's, and such like that. So let's look at our first word, collapse. Collapse. It is a noun. Sometimes it could also be a verb. And it's when a sudden failure or falling down of a structure happens. In this case, there was a roof. In the sentence example on the bottom left, the building collapsed due to structural weaknesses. All right, so now I made it a point to put the sentence example to the left just so my screen is not going to be blocking it over here on the right. All right, let's continue with the next word. Fatalities. Fatalities. And that is a noun, meaning deaths resulting from a disaster or accident. So our example sentence here, the accident led to multiple fatalities. Multiple meaning a lot. Our third word for today is injuries, another noun. And that means to bring physical harm or damage to someone's body. Several people sustained injuries in the incident. All right, I did hear that 5 words was pretty good. 3 wasn't enough. So we're going to go with another 5 words for this article. And we're going to continue doing current events. It's the quickest way that I'm able to reach my goal of trying to upload or post a video every day just by going live, not having to worry about editing. And, the content is here. You're learning from it. I'm happy that I'm teaching it and I get to upload it right away. And whoever misses it can watch it later and learn from it. So our next word is investigation. And that is another noun. A formal inquiry to discover and examine the facts of an incident. An investigation is underway to determine the cause. And like we mentioned earlier, they don't know how this happened or how it started. Unfortunately, yet they're investigating. That means they're in the process of trying to figure out what happened. And our last word for today is actually a phrase, rescue operations, and that is a noun. Efforts taken, efforts undertaken to save people from danger. Now, it could also be considered a verb if you consider the rescuers actually performing the operations. But in this case, the way that it's being used is a noun because it is a thing and it is basically a plan created by first responders to release people from pain, get people out of rubble, basically search for missing people. A lot of family members came to the spot of the collapse looking for their loved one nowhere in sight, not at any local hospital. So they were looking for people actively in that debris. And our example sentence here, rescue operations continued throughout the night. All right, so that was our vocabulary focus. We learned some keywords from this article. We have collapse, right? Fatalities, injuries, investigation, and rescue operations. So if you look to the right of those words, those are definitions scrambled up. And your goal right here would be to match the correct letter with the number. So the number has the words, the letters have to match the letters, the definitions have to match the word with the numbers. So if you were to write this in the comments, all you would do is write the number, for example, 1, and then you would find the definition and write the letter. You do not need to type the whole word or type the whole definition to answer this. All right. Should I give you number 1? Should I give you the answer to number 1? And then you guys could figure out the rest? Yeah? All right, let's do that. So number 1 would be C, a sudden failure of a structure. So in the chat or in the comments, I'm just going to type 1C, and then that'll give you a response. You got that? You just need to write the number and the letter. I don't need anything else. All right, so our grammar focus for today, we're going to look at 2 different types of grammar structures: past simple versus past continuous. Don't forget, by the way, to just use those words that we just learned in your own sentences. We saw example sentences from the article, but what I want you to do is say those words over and over again out loud, first of all. So say them out loud, number 1, and then write them down, use them in a sentence. If you master these words, they're very real words. They're going to be very useful in your conversations. And all 5 words are actually very powerful words. So please try to use those inside your sentences. All right. So, like I said, the story focuses on past simple and past continuous. An example of the past simple tense used in the story: the roof collapsed during the concert. And we use past simple in English for completed actions in the past. So events or actions that happened already in the past and they are done happening. All right. The roof collapse discussed at the concert is not going to collapse again right now. Right? I'm not saying it can't be rebuilt and then something else happens. I'm not saying that. That would be very unfortunate. But it's past tense because the event already happened. The roof already collapsed. It's past tense, simple past. Now we have past continuous tense. And those are used for actions that were in progress at a specific time in the past. So, an example of that in the story, people were dancing when the roof collapsed. So, they were actively in the progress of dancing at that specific time in the past when the roof already had collapsed. All right. Hopefully, you get the gist of those two different forms of grammar. And, there were a lot of different examples. For example, people screamed and ran outside. I remember that happening in the article. During the concert, what happened? The roof collapsed. So the roof collapsed during the concert, and then people were dancing when the roof collapsed, and then people screamed and ran outside. Another example of past perfect, many guests had arrived before the collapse began. Again, by the way, the article, you can find it inside the chat right now, and you'll find it in the comments once this posts. What example would this be? Would it be past continuous or past simple? If I read, the show had started when the tragedy happened. The show had started when the tragedy happened. Would that be past simple or past continuous? Think about cause and effect. What happened first? What happened later? All right, so do your best to try to write two sentences of your own using past simple and then past continuous. You can use some of the words from the example sentences. For example, you could use the roof and then maybe change the word collapsed to a different type of verb. You can use the word during, the word during, and the word the, and then find a different word for concert. So there are different ways you can use your own language by taking the examples and then writing your own sentences. All right, here's another quick activity that you can do. Look at the sentences with the blanks. Inside of the parentheses, you will see a verb. And what you need to do is just fill in that blank with the correct form of the verb. So the verb, for example, perform is in parentheses, and you're either going to use past simple, which we just learned about, or past continuous tense. All right, we just gave examples for both. The band blank when the roof blank. Number 2, many attendees blank at the time of the incident. Number 3, rescue teams blank shortly after the accident blank. Now, this is the type of practice you need to be doing every day. If you're serious about trying to learn English, if you're serious about trying to be fluent, about trying to be better at speaking, this is the type of practice you need to do. Not only filling in the blanks, which just helps you critically think, but also after getting the correct response, going and using this language in a conversation with someone. If someone is discussing this event that just happened, you're trying to use the same language in the sentence that you wrote because you also have to practice speaking it. Number 4, while authorities blank the cause, families blank for news. All right, so we're changing the sentence, the verb tense, either making it past simple, happened in the past already, or past continuous. If you would like a longer explanation about those two verb forms, just let me know in the comments or let me know in the chat. I have a whole lesson about that. All right. This is just one activity. So if you're still confused about those two tenses, just let me know. I'll make a video for you. All right, now let's get into some comprehension questions. Again, you have the text on the side. Click it, and you can use it to read through the key points that you'll find in this excerpt. Or you can just read the excerpt on the screen as it is and try to answer the question. So, what happened at the Jet Set nightclub in Santo Domingo? Now, this is straight from the article. It's an excerpt. An excerpt is a piece of a whole piece of work. It's a small piece of an entire piece of work. And this excerpt says on April 8th, 2025, the roof of the iconic Jet Set nightclub in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, collapsed during a merengue concert, killing at least 98 people and injuring 160 others. So this article's excerpt came out the day, or actually that night, that the collapse happened, where 98 people were dead. But since then, since the recording of this video right now, more people have been found deceased. And the number, the last I checked at least, was over 221 people. And many more people missing. So what happened at the Jet Set nightclub? To start answering this question, you would say blank happened. Blank happened at the Jet Set nightclub in Santo Domingo. Blank happened. All right, you would fill in the blank with the what. Who were some of the notable individuals who died in the collapse? Right, this excerpt is telling us that among the victims were renowned merengue singer Robbie Perez, former MLB, that's Major League Baseball players Octavio Dotel and Tony Enrique, Blanco Cabrera, and also distinguished community figures such as a retired United Nations official, a fashion designer, and the governor of Monte Cristi's sister. So a friend of a friend of a friend, a cousin of a cousin. A lot of people passed away at this event, but this excerpt gives us notable individuals, famous people who were there. How would you start answering this? Some of the notable individuals who died in the collapse were, you see, we go right back to the question and we take the were, and then we put it at the end of collapse, and then we start naming the names from the article. So we're just rephrasing the question and adding the names from the excerpt. Question number 3, what actions did the government take in response to the tragedy? What did the government do because this tragedy happened? So the article gives us the answer, and we're going to get the words from the article after rephrasing the question in order to answer it. The excerpt states, President Louis Abinader, the First Lady Raquel Abrahe visited the site, expressing grief and ensuring continued rescue efforts. What actions did the government take in response to the tragedy? We would start with the actions that the government took in response to the tragedy are, and then we're going to talk about them expressing grief and promising that we will never stop looking for people who may still be trapped in that rubble. How did the local community react to the disaster? The article states the tragedy has deeply impacted the local community, especially the town of Haina, which lost more than 20 residents, prompting a communal wake marked by collective grief and mourning. All right, so we specifically hear about this one town who lost 20 residents, but we still have to take the words of the question before we respond with the words from the excerpt. So, how did the local community react to the disaster? We would start with the local. The local community reacted to the disaster by, when you see a how question, you're not using because to answer. You want to use by. And basically, how is a process of a way that something happened. And because is a reason why. So that's the difference. We say because if it says why did the local community, and then we could say because, but since this is how, we have to use the word by. So the local community reacted to the disaster by, what did they do? They prompted something. It's in that excerpt, right? I can't give you the full answer because I do need you to practice. What is known about the cause of the roof collapse? And the excerpt tells us that authorities have launched an investigation into the cause of the collapse, as details regarding the building's last inspection remain unclear. So, what do they know about it? What is known about the cause? This tells us that they launched an investigation into the cause. So, since they launched an investigation into the cause, remember our definition for investigate, what it means. It means they have to look into it. So, since they have to look into what the cause is, they really don't know much about it. And this excerpt tells us the last inspection remains unclear. So, whenever you have a big place like this concert venue, even little places, right? A small cafe, all of these buildings, all of these businesses are responsible for inspections where officials from the government would come in and make sure, the electricity is current and running properly, the building's walls and foundation and roof, like this case here, and roof are up to code, meaning there are no issues with them that would put people's lives in danger. And it seems like, for whatever reason, this club, either they passed the inspection and then the roof collapsed, or they've been getting away with having parties, having concerts without a proper inspection being done. Those are the only two scenarios I see here. But either way, right now it's still unclear. All right. If you want me to do a follow up on this current event, just let me know in the comments. If you want to know, if they actually found out what happened while launching this investigation, let me know. But like I told you, this world is spinning so fast and there's so much news going on. Can't stick to this just one story, But if you really want to, this one person, just you, if you really want to hear a follow up, let me know. I'll make a video on it. All right. All right, now we're getting into my favorite. My favorite part is the 5 W's of this story. So we're going to use the 5 W's to ask and answer big questions. Who was involved in this story? We have victims that included over 200 people, concert goers. We can call them concert goers. So instead of people, we could say concert goers. Notice those two words coming together: goers, people who go places, and concert goers, people who go to concerts. That is an amazing compound word. A merengue singer, Ruby Perez, he was involved in this concert. And some former MLB, Major League Baseball players. And we heard about this UN official, former retired UN official, and other politicians and community figures. The answer is a lot of people were involved in this incident. What happened? The roof of the Jet Set nightclub collapsed during a live concert. It killed over 221 people, we know now, right? But at the time of me creating these slides, it was only at 98, but that number has went up since then. And it's only been a day. I was only absent one day, okay? I'm sorry. I was absent for one day and so much news already happened. But either way, you 16 people that watched this, I came back the next day and I still have a little bad cough, but I still came back to make this video for you. Where did it happen? So we know it happened in DR at the Jet Set nightclub in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. When did it occur, or when did it happen? Occur is another word for happen. The roof collapse happened on April 8th, 2025. And so we have a date, a day, a year, a month. And we also have a place, which is the merengue concert. But since we're saying during, it automatically becomes a time period. So when? During a concert at this place, the Jet Set nightclub. Why did it happen? We still don't know. At the time of this lesson, we don't know. So the exact cause is under investigation. We read the excerpt. They launched an investigation, but obviously the structure failed. That's our vocabulary word, collapse. It means when a structure fails. And that's what we're suspecting. How did it fail? We don't know. How did it get an opportunity to fail? Well, that's the inspector's fault, right? It's the inspector's fault. We'll see how well they're protected. All right, so now it's your turn. This is asynchronous, so you don't have to do it right now, this second, but try to do it, maybe when you get a little break. You want to write your own 5Ws questions, just like we read about. We read about the who. We asked the question specifically about who. We read about the what. We asked a specific question about what. We did the same thing for when, where, and why. So write your own questions based off the article. And here's an example. Who were the victims? And then try to change your answers up. Just like we have answers next to each 5W, you try to change your answers up and try to come up with your own based on the article. And if you really want to get good at this, there is one last step to the 5Ws. It is 5Ws and the H, and that is the how. So throw in a how question. Remember, you answer how with by, not with because, with by. Even native speakers confuse this sometimes. Someone asks them a how question and they'll start saying because. But remember, because is a why question. But for how, we want to respond with by, a process or way that someone or something does something. All right, so let's test your understanding using these real excerpts here. Oh, actually, I think we did. Yeah, we did do that. We did the excerpts already. Yes, we did the excerpts, the comprehension questions. My fault. And I know that was brutal. I was going to save it for last before, but we're pretty much done here. I think we've been here for almost an hour. It went fast for me. But try to look at these words again. That was our first activity, the five vocabulary words. We have collapse, tragedy, iconic, rescue, and investigation. And actually, these are some extra vocabulary words because I do believe that we also had rescue operations in there. And we also had, yeah, tragedy is a new one, and iconic is a new one. Let me jump back real quick. It's going to be quick. Here we go. We had collapse, fatalities, there you go, injuries, investigation, which is still part of the recap, and then rescue operations. So we covered a lot. And of course, I still have some asynchronous tasks slash homework if you want to get some extra practice in there. It's going to be coming up. But you could use these five words or the other five words, or you can try to find your own words from the article. But the idea is to use them in your own sentence. Okay. And then just pick two of those vocabulary words and try to write a short paragraph describing how those words relate to the article. And it's speaking practice for this task. So record yourself either on your phone or a voice note. Record yourself reading the answer out loud and then listen to it again. Try to check out your pronunciation. If it's not how you feel it should be sounding, then you try it again and you could ask someone else to review it for you or listen to you. You can always email me with that voice note and I can listen to you and give you feedback. So it's all up to you. All right. You could also write two original sentences, one in past simple, one in past perfect, or better yet, do five in past simple and five in past perfect. The more you do, the more you write, the stronger you're going to become at that task. So try to describe the different things that you read about, what happened at that nightclub, maybe how the victims' families are feeling, but you want to focus on past simple and past perfect. All right. And if you listen to me in another video that I made, then you have a journal. Open up that journal and you could write a paragraph, 5 to 7 sentences about how you feel about this event. Especially if maybe you know someone who was at this event and they passed away. A good way to start feeling good about it is to write some kind or nice things about that person's family or about the experience you had with this person. It's just a good way to cope. Just write it out, release it, and try to use some of the vocabulary words that we learned about inside the journal. And I still have some more work for you. All right, so look for another news article in your native language about maybe something similar that happened. It doesn't have to be a concert. It could have been at a parade. It could have been in a classroom. It could have been in a factory. It doesn't have to be a roof collapse. It could be something else, some other tragic accident that happened, maybe in your home country or your friend's native country. And then just try to read that article just like we did. And you're going to summarize it using the 5 W's. Those same words that we learned in this article, they can be used in other events that happened as well. You may see them if you do read another article about a similar event. You may see those same words popping up inside those articles. So it's very important to learn them, learn how to use them, and learn how to identify them in English. And of course, like I said, if you want to practice your speaking as well, every single writing activity that you do, you can use it as a speaking activity. All you need to do is pull out your phone and record yourself, record your voice, reading or speaking that writing that you just completed. All right. Would you be able to explain that to a friend or family member in English? If you do, you're practicing your speaking. All right. I think I'm all done here. I did my job. Been here for 40 minutes. If we don't have any other questions or comments in the chat, then I'm going to work on this next video, this next article. Again, leave it in the comments if you would like to have me complete another recording or make another lesson on a news article that you read or that you know about. And also, I still do lessons. I still do regular English lessons. So if you have a topic that you want me to cover, throw it in the comments, or you can definitely find my email in the channel description. Just email me and I'll make a video on that. And look, I'm not at a loss for ideas here. I have over 1,000 lesson plans ready to go. It's just that for some reason, the motivational videos is what I wanted to start doing because I heard a lot of people saying they want to quit. They may not have time to continue practicing. They have to go to work, and all of that is understandable. But I still have motivational videos that I'm going to push out for you. And these current events, not only are they important, but it's a great opportunity to learn vocabulary, to learn different types of grammar structures, to practice the 5 W's, which I feel out of every strategy that I've taught you, the 5 W's, I still feel after 20 years is the best strategy to get a grasp or a command of English. So the current events allows me to teach you that. It allows me to teach you vocabulary. It gives me opportunities to give you different activities that you can practice. And the main reason is I don't have to edit and this video's done. All right. I'll see you. Have a good one.